Hi, in this video we're going to be talking about wireless networks, or Wi-Fi as they're also known as. So we're just going to kind of show you how they work, some of the standards, and then at the end of the video we'll give you a little demonstration of how you can connect to one. Alright, so on the main screen here we have a little graphic. So you may or may not have two devices at home with your internet connection here, a modem and a router. Sometimes they will be all in one, so a single device doing both. But what usually happens is you have the modem, which connects to the internet via your internet service provider. So then your wireless router connects to your modem to get the internet connection from the modem, and then the router distributes that connection to all your devices. As you can see here, you could have a wireless printer, laptop, desktop, smartphone, tablet, just about anything that's allowed to use wireless, you could connect your wireless router, even your refrigerator. And then you'll probably also notice too that many routers will have Ethernet network ports on them as well. So if you want to hardwire something into your wireless router, you could do so. Let's say you have an older desktop that doesn't have a wireless card in it. You could plug it into your router with a network cable or an Ethernet cable and connect that way. All right, so let's talk about the key components of a Wi-Fi network. So like I mentioned, you have the router. So this is the central device that connects to the internet and distributes the signal to connected devices. And that will have built-in security features. So you most likely, or you should, be using a password for your wireless connection, so that way your neighbors can't get into it or anybody else who's not supposed to. All right, then you have access points. So if you need to extend your wireless coverage, let's say you have a really big house or you're doing it at the office, you can use these individual access points that will extend the coverage of your wireless connection. Sometimes at bigger locations like schools and offices, you'll see them on the ceiling. And then we have wireless devices. So these are things like your smartphone, tablet, laptop, desktop, printer, and anything else that has a wireless connection. And then the modem. So this is what connects the router to your internet service provider, like we saw in the previous diagram. All right, so now let's talk about some of the Wi-Fi standards and speeds. So when you're shopping for wireless adapters or wireless devices, you're going to want to make sure it has the latest and greatest standard, and then also that it matches your wireless router. But usually they're backwards compatible. So let's say you bought the latest and greatest 802.11ax wireless adapter, but your router at home only supports 802.11n. It will still connect. It'll just use the speeds of the slower device here. So you can see here back in 1999, 11 megabits per second, and then things gradually speed up as we get to the newer standards here, up to 9.6 gigabits per second, and they'll just keep on getting faster as we go along. All right, so now let's talk about frequency bands. So when you have your wireless connection, you probably notice that you have a 2.4 gigahertz and a 5 gigahertz, maybe a 6, depending on how new your equipment is. So in deciding which frequency to use is going to depend on the situation. So the 2.4 is better for devices that are farther away from the router because you have a larger coverage area, but it will be a little bit slower. And then the 5 gigahertz is used for faster connections when you're close to your router. So if you're trying to connect something to the 5 gigahertz and it keeps dropping the signal, it could mean because things are too far away, then you might want to switch over to your 2.4 gigahertz connection and see how that does. But if you're right next to the router, use the 5 gigahertz connection, assuming your devices support that. All right, and then we have security in our wireless networks. So when you connect to a wireless network, you most likely have to put in a password, unless it's some kind of public open connection. And then you want to be careful using those anyways, because you don't know who else is on there or who set it up or who's trying to steal your data. All right, so we have encryption. So you're most likely using WPA3 to protect your data. That's the latest standard there. And of course, we have passwords. You want to set a strong password for your wireless network, just like you do for your computer and other accounts. And then some of these devices offer MAC filtering. So a MAC address is a hardwired address unique to that device. So if you need to filter out certain devices and only allow certain devices or block certain devices, you could use MAC filtering on your router to do so. So that's more of an advanced feature, but it's an option if you want to check that out. And many wireless connections will have a guest network, and this is used to separate other devices from your main network where your main devices are on. So this is commonly used at workplaces. where you want to offer internet access to your customers, but you don't want them on the same network where all your main computers are located. All right, so now let's connect to a wireless network and see how it works. All right, so we're on this Windows 11 computer here, and if we click on the connection down here, it's on network 2 right now. So right now it's using an Ethernet connection. You can see there's no wireless symbol down here. It's just the regular Ethernet network connection. And if we go to the settings too, you can see we're connected to Ethernet 0. Even though this does have a wireless connection and it's turned on, we're just not connected. So you can technically use both Ethernet and a wireless connection at the same time. Don't really recommend it. It's not really going to help you, but it is possible to do so. All right, so now let's click on the network connection down here. Then you can see we have available wireless connections. You could also disable wireless from here. If you click on the arrow, you can see the available connections here. And you can see how they have the lock icons. That means they have passwords assigned to them, except for this one here. And when you see something like that, doesn't mean you should be connecting to it, because it could be a trap, so you never know. You can have some hidden networks here, and this is a hidden network with no password. All right, so let's say we're going to connect to this Mochi connection here. There's a box here to connect automatically, so if you check that, every time your computer is in range of this connection, it'll automatically connect. And if you don't do it, then every time you disconnect, say restart your computer, you're going to have to manually connect to it. Then we click on connect here. And since this computer has connected to this wireless network before, I do not need to put in a password. So let's disconnect here. So let's try one of these others. Or you can see it wants the password, which I don't have because it's not my network. So you'd have to enter in that password and click OK, and then you'd be able to connect to that network. Then, of course, if you want to disconnect, let's connect again here. You just click on the disconnect button, and then you're no longer connected. All right, so there's your basic overview of wireless networks. So the main takeaway is just to know how these devices work, because it comes in handy if you need to do some troubleshooting. And then it's also important to know about the security and the standards in case you're buying some new hardware and you want to make sure you have the latest and greatest, and then also make sure that your devices are compatible. All right, thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe.